is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 1. Where is Josh's friend? In this episode, Josh has become a homosexual. Not a proud moment for him. Very not a proud moment for Rebecca. And Greg, what are you doing, buddy? Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. First of all, huge thank you to Megan for commissioning this episode. Megan also commissioned the next, 6 episodes. She's been the MVP on this one. I want to mention that next Wednesday, I will be covering episode 2, and then episode 3 has been commissioned as a live watch for some reason. So I wanted to alert you all that the live watch will be on the 29th of January, or no, the 4th of February. And then I will be recording on it on the 5th. So if you want more information about that, you can go to facebook.com/unspoiledpod and register or RSVP, I guess, to those events. And Facebook will remind you when they are happening. And that way you don't miss them. So you guys, oh my God, there's a lot going on. All right. Are we ready? Are we ready? First of all, I want to talk about Paula. Big surprise. I feel like pretty much every episode, Paula is on my mind. Maybe that means something. I don't know. But Paula is starting to come around. She says the words that I need her to say, which are, I thought you were the perfect love story, and maybe I was wrong. It doesn't seem like he cares about you the way you want him to. Finally. Now, the thing is, at this point, does it matter if she believes it anymore? Because obviously, Rebecca has got back into her bad cycle. But I do think it is a little helpful that Rebecca has somebody in her life being like, girl, I don't know about this, because when you step back and look at Rebecca as a person, let's treat her as if she were one of our own friends. When you first meet somebody and you first become friends with them, you don't have the context of their history yet to know whether or not their reactions to things and their expectations of things are unreasonable. You like this person. You seem to get a good vibe off of them. In other areas of their life, they seem very competent. They seem reasonable and they are, doing well financially. They do well at work. All of that seems to point to the fact that they are a rational human being who makes reasonable decisions. So it's really understandable why Paula kind of just goes with Rebecca's crush, for lack of a more obsession, with Josh. Then you add in the fact that Paula didn't have anything going on and needed something to apply her considerable own competence to. And boy, did she do it. I mean, once we find out all of the shit that she was doing behind the scenes that Rebecca didn't even know about, this bitch had the time and she knew what to do. So this is just a perfect storm of just bad, good intentions paired with an emptiness or a boredom or a undirected talent being caught up in somebody who has an unhealthy obsession and obviously struggles with mental illness, but is really, really good at camouflaging that at first. And the thing is, she isn't even that good at camouflaging that. It's just that Paula kind of didn't want to see it, right? So I had mentioned in the wrap-up episode that I really hoped Paula would find something else that she could like focus on. And I think I said that I wanted her to start like a dating podcast or something. Well, it looks like what she's going to do is go back to school, and she is going to try and get a law degree. Fucking awesome. This is like perfect, ideal circumstance. Super happy for her. And this will likely lead to some shenanigans of her own, and I am extremely interested. So I just wanted to start off with just saying, oh, Paula, I am so proud of you. Now let's back up and we'll talk about how this episode opens, because we start off 15 minutes after Rebecca saying to Josh that she moved here for him. And it's a really great moment because Josh has this like look on his face like he is not sure how to proceed into the next thing he wants to say out loud. And Rebecca has a look on her face like almost that she isn't really sure what happened, but she can sense that he has suddenly pulled away from her. I don't think she even quite realizes what a mistake she's made yet. She just knows that something has made him behave completely different an instant later. So then he asks her, did you really mean what you said? And she kind of is like, listen, it was just a bad moment. Honestly, anybody could have walked into my life and I would have done whatever because I was just looking for a reason to change everything, which honestly isn't a terrible thing to say. Like, I get where she's going. It doesn't necessarily mitigate the damage overall of what she's saying. But then he says, well, then what did you mean about now our love story can really begin, finally begin? And this is when Rebecca does some unforgivable shit. She doesn't know how to recover from this. So what does she do? She just gaslights him and pretends that she never said it, and then turns his valid question into her like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're obsessing so much about every little thing I say. You're kind of pressuring me right now, and maybe you should just bring me home. Bitch, what are you doing? I just want to tear my own skin off. I cannot, like, and I'm watching her do this. And honestly, there's a part of me that's like a little impressed. Like, you can see the lawyer coming out. And she mentions later how she convinced a jury that black mold actually increases SAT scores. And like, yeah, that's definitely at play here. So there's a bit of me that's like, wow, she really managed to turn that one around. But the thing is, she doesn't. That's what's so frustrating here, is that not that it would ever be okay that she did this because it's so gross. But if it worked, if it got Josh to sort of back off and be like, God, did I misunderstand that? The little terrible part of me that is rooting for her, even though I think this is an entirely bad situation and that her and Josh are a bad idea, that little part of me would be relieved, and I would hope that we could just keep going from there. But instead, you can see Josh being hurt. It's not just that Josh is like fooled with no consequence to that. It's not just him being like, oh, I must have got that wrong, and then moving right along. Josh knows in his gut that she said what she said, and he is just like sort of taking the easy, okay, honey, whatever you say, sort of moment, in all likelihood, that's very familiar to him, which he has probably done many times with Valencia. And to watch Josh get sort of like crumpled up like that, where he just goes from like standing up and asking a really honest and reasonable question to then being knocked off his footing so badly that you can see him doubting himself and worrying is really hard to watch. It's like just ugly, you know? Rebecca says, Erica says, so when thinking about how Rebecca would get out of her, I moved here for you moment. Did you think she'd go to straight up gaslighting? No. I just didn't think if she did, it would work. And again, it doesn't really work, but she manages to gaslight pretty fucking well. And I just couldn't picture, even if somebody had said, well, she gaslights him and says she never said it. If you just told me that she says she never said it, I'd be like, how can she possibly say she never said it? But the way that she kind of takes the words themselves and makes them utterly secondary to, I don't think whether I said that is even like the thing. It's more about you being so obsessive about everything I say. And turning it into a whole different issue than the one that Josh is bringing up, that is effective shit. It's abusive and terrible, but it worked in its way, just not in the way that she wants it to work, which is she doesn't get Josh to drop it. He doesn't let go completely. He allows her to sort of smooth things over. And I think, honestly, the thing was that she tried to press her advantage a little too much. So if she had said, you know, I think you need to wonder why you're like obsessing over and you know, you're talking about love. Okay, I think we need to pump the brakes. How about you just like drop me off at home and we'll take a minute to like think about this. And then actually followed through and was like, all right, you know what? Have a good night. I'm sorry about this. There was clearly a misunderstanding, but how about we just like leave it? Then I think she actually could have pulled this off. But what she did was immediately go, when he says, oh, I'm sorry. No, don't worry about it. Oh, well, do you maybe like want to get some fast food? And like, I don't know, like, you know, you can come back to my apartment and I'll just like try and forget about that crazy thing that you just said. That's where I think she went wrong. I mean, wrong in terms of her tactics. Wrong in terms of her morality is way behind her in the rearview mirror. But I think that was the thing, that she tried to have her cake and eat it too. She wants to make him doubt himself and put him off balance and reconsider whether he heard what he heard. But she also wants to keep hanging out with him and draw him in closer, which is what, if she had said what he says she said, would be her goal. So she's sort of playing into his suspicions by doing this. So yeah, she almost handles this and then kind of doesn't. And you can see Josh decide to like hang out with her, but feel weird about it. So then we get the new intro. Guys, I'm just a girl in love. I can't be held responsible for my actions. I have no underlying issues to address. I'm certifiably cute and adorably obsessed. This is genius. And the fucking manic expression on her face as she sings the song. And then her busting through the picture of Josh with her own face like she's in The Shining, and this long musicless pause before it moves on to the actual show. It's all just flawlessly done. It is so creepy. Oh my God. It is so creepy. So yeah, this is just really good. I was just super curious about how like they were going to do this for the new opening, because I had thought after she talks to her therapist on the plane and thinks, yeah, I really need to change the opening, that they would have a new one for the next episode, but they waited until the new season. So yeah, this blam where her face just comes through it and she's like smiling. Oh, it's so terrible. So we jump to 3 weeks later and she has just finished giving Josh a blowjob, and they are laying in bed together, and it looks like, oh, wow, she did it. They're together. Oh, okay. And then he's trying to get out of bed and not kiss her. And I'm like, wait, why is he being like, they're clearly together though. And then he says that he needs to go and hit the couch. And then I was like, oh no. Like all of a sudden it became so clear what is happening here. So I, in this intro, mentioned Josh becoming a hobosexual. This is a thing that a friend of mine has mentioned. A few friends of mine actually. I've heard it multiple places. Where a guy pretends that he's into a girl, not because he really is, but because he has nowhere to stay. And he kind of like acts like he's helping around the house and like contributing, but often isn't really. And is just sort of using her and pretending that he's invested in a relationship when he is no such thing. This is the thing about the economy, everybody. When people can't get jobs that pay decently, they can't afford to live. And if they can't afford to live, they stay in toxic, shitty relationships, taking advantage of one another because they need to be able to feed themselves and shelter themselves. So you get things like women staying with abusive men because they have nowhere else to go and can't afford to be on their own. And you have dudes who use women in order to worm their way into pretending to be in a committed relationship when really they're out here probably fucking around a lot of the time. In Josh's case, maybe not, but nevertheless, it's a similar situation. Everybody just needs a living wage and housing needs to be fucking reasonable. And it's just so not. So anyway, and that's a sidetrack. Guys, when she's giving him a blowjob, initially I'm kind of like, all right, girl, yeah. Personally, I love giving blowjobs. Super fun. Like, just, I'm very good at it, and I know I am, and I just have all the power in that moment, and it is super fun. So I see this, and I'm like, get it. And then he says he's going to hit the couch, and all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, bitch, what are you doing? This bitch is trying to win him over by over-giving in bed. Because it seems pretty clear he came home, had a hard day, she blew him, and then he went to the couch. It does not seem like he reciprocated in any way. It does not seem like it even occurs to him to do so. It does not seem like she wants him to suggest it. Because she wants to be the cool girlfriend that will just give him a blowjob and not expect anything back. Because that would be a drag. She wants to be light and airy and breezy and blowjobby. And, just like, be cool. Be so cool. Be really awesome. Be like so awesome. Such a perfect, awesome girlfriend that you're just like, how did I ever get this lucky? And then he'll want to be with me. And then he'll know, oh my God, I could never get this from anybody else. This girl is the one. I will never take advantage of her or hurt her or throw her away, because where will I get blowjobs like this with no reciprocation? Nowhere. That's where. That's what she thinks she's doing. What's so painful about this is that I've been here. I've done this. Absolutely. I have done this. And if you don't think you've done this, I want you to be a little bit more honest with yourself, because you likely have. If you've been in relationships, more than one or two long-term monogamous relationships, if you've been out in the world dating and been into somebody that you were sexually active with who things didn't ultimately wind up working out with that well, I want you to really think about how you were with that person. When you were into them more than they were into you, you didn't do this sort of thing, didn't you? Because it is such an easy trap to fall into. Turning yourself into a different version of you that is the ideal. You are pick-meing yourself. You are turning yourself into a fucking maxim, what I look for in a girlfriend in 8 bullet points. Like, listicle. It's so clear from the outside that this is what's happening. And Paula straight up tells her this. That, what is it she says? That he is exploiting you. Precisely. But of course, Rebecca does not want to hear this. Because why would you? Because of course, you believe that while it may look like that right now, they simply either don't understand or don't have faith in your plan to reel him in via your extra good behavior. That's not it, honey. We just recognize that you are being somebody that you're not in an effort to get them in the door, and then you're going to slam the door shut behind them, and you think that you're going to keep being that person. That's not who you are, though, and you won't keep being that person, and then the person who walked in the door is going to realize that they walked in for a person who isn't in there, and then they're going to turn around and want to walk back out again, and you're going to be like, I don't understand, I thought you liked me, and they're going to be like, yeah, I thought so too, but it turns out that you're not the person that I thought, because you were lying to them about yourself. But none of us really think that far ahead, do we? No. We just want the thing that we want. And we really think that because we want it, it must be meant to be. Because we are interested and have this, like, you know, obsession. That must mean it's fate. That must mean that the gods are on our side. Oh, sweetie. No. Think about the things that we wanted, y'all. Look back at your life. How many of the things that you thought you wanted did you get and then realize, oh no, oh, this is so not what I thought? Or how many of the things that did you want and not get that you look back and you're like, thank fuck that didn't happen? Because Jesus Christ, can you imagine? And yeah, wanting something does not mean it's fate. That's not how that goes. Rashawn, oh my God. I have to show you my blowjob poem from when I was like 19. And then she posted a bunch of emojis and she doesn't seem to know where they came from. I don't know, but there's a woman symbol and a man with his hand over his face, a white blonde man. Erica says, if there's one thing I learned from reading Percy Jackson, it's that the gods are never on your side. Honestly, I think a good rule of thumb in life is to assume nobody is rooting for you and that you just need to kind of go and do what you need to do as a fuck you to the people who aren't rooting for you. Like, just, you know, I just don't think there's a difference between having faith that things will like generally work themselves out, because I do believe in a micro sense with individual people, that can tend to be true. If you've like managed to live this long, then you've had pretty good luck. A lot of people don't make it this far. But there's a difference between sort of trying to be optimistic in that way and believing that like things are working out because God has taken a particular interest in you personally. So anyway, this scene where he gets up and leaves is incredibly awkward. And I was just so happy that Paula is trying to be real with her the next day. She keeps on saying, I fixed it right after talking to him in the car. And Paula's like, you didn't, or he would be sleeping in your bed. This is not fixed. It's just, you know, and this is when Rebecca says, it's starting to feel like you just don't even believe in me and Josh anymore. And there is this long pause where Paula just looks at her and she's like, oh my God, do you not? And I'm like, oh, finally Paula is catching up with the rest of us. First of all, she has this moment of trying to be like, you don't even know what happened this morning. And guys, first of all, she's like, hey babe. And Josh comes in and goes, hey babe, hey there. Oh, don't you just want to die? don't you just want to fucking rip your own ears off after hearing somebody try and like, oh, how does she not? It's like she just doesn't even hear that part. It's like her brain is tuned to one fucking, everything that he says that isn't fitting in to her narrative is on AM. And all of the stuff that kind of fits and barely does is on FM, and she's tuned solely to FM. And there's somebody that keeps on trying to twiddle the dial to AM, so she keeps slapping their hand away and being like, no, I'm listening to the FM, okay? Like, it's rough. So I should mention, guys, that, and I love this in particular, he comes upstairs looking for his socks that he can't find, and he's asking her if she's seen them, and she is curled up on her bed already, like, it's obviously kind of like the morning, and it feels like he is supposed to, like, this is supposed to be a time where she's in the middle of getting ready. It looks like, to me, she got up an hour earlier than she ever has, got herself dolled up. She's laying on her side, rubbing her legs together, and just being like, hey, no, oh my God, no, I haven't seen her socks. I'm so sorry. And she's wearing high heels in her, like, boy shorts on her bed. She's just going for it. She's fucking doing it. Like, what are you doing? Oh my God. It was hysterical. Like, but again, it's hysterical because, yeah, I have done this shit. I have absolutely just done too much. And the thing about this stuff is you can do it because you enjoy doing it. You can dress up and be flirty and, like, just be like a total sex pot because you're enjoying doing that. And it makes you feel powerful, and you can tell that your partner enjoys it and whatever. But there is a different vibe to it when you do that. And once you've, like, done it enough, you can tell the difference. And one of them is you trying to look like you are just living your life, and you just happen to be super sexy all the time. And it's just, oh my God, oh, you just caught me when I was just putting my heels on with my underwear, like I always do every day. I always dress underwear, heels, and then clothes. No, this is totally normal. This is just what I'm like. And then there are the days where with a real person, you're like, hey, sweetie, you see what I'm wearing? What do you think? You like it? And you just are honest about the fact that, yeah, I put this on for you. I am doing this because I want to bone you right now. She's trying to pretend that she's like this other cartoon. And it's just so, so, so painful. Ugh. And yeah, he isn't even, like, noticing it. That's the part in this scene that is kind of embarrassing, is that she is, like, trying so hard, and he is apparently so used to her doing this all the time that it doesn't even register for him anymore. And that's the part that, honestly, that was the thing when I was dating and somebody mentioned it to me in these terms, is what made it sort of sink in. I can't remember who I was talking to, but they were kind of like, imagine that you go on a first date with somebody and you just spend all of your paycheck on this first date. And it does make an amazing impression, and they have a great time, and they want to see you again. But then you go on another date and you literally have no more money to do anything with. Why would you set this up this way? And they were saying, if you are going out on a first date with a guy, or a third date, whatever, and, like, the first time you sleep together, he sees you having gone to 11 with your effort, and you made this amazing meal, and you're wearing this new sexy lingerie, and you have done everything. That's your 11. And you gave it to him, like, for nothing. Like, he hardly had to put any effort in to get your 11. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you want him to have your 11? Or are you doing it because you're trying to prove that this is like you are better than other women by, fulfilling, ticking certain boxes? And if it's the latter, maybe you want to make him work for your 11 a little bit more. And he then won't get used to getting it for nothing. And he will meet you by putting in a little bit more effort on his own end. And I don't love the approach to dating of treating men like they are children and having like a points system. But honestly, there is some merit to that approach, because I think we grow up in a society where women are just expected to make more effort at everything. And I think putting men in the position where they have to make more effort than they're used to is a really smart way to establish that this is your expectation in a relationship in general. So they don't get confused when you were willing to settle for very little initially. And then a year into the relationship, you're suddenly like, well, I want you to do more than this. And they're like, since when? No, you never acted like you did. And this is who I am. And you knew that. So what the fuck? If you get a little bit like, you're getting that if you do this. If you show me this, then maybe I'll show you this. That's kind of like, I feel a way to even the scales a little bit, because women, we be doing too much. Like, let's be honest. Men just don't societally have to make the effort. And I mean that in every way. They don't have to try and stay as slender as women try and stay. They don't dress up in the way that women dress up. They don't have to spend a quarter of their paycheck on skincare and makeup. They just don't have to do as much. So demanding more from them from the gate without giving so much, honestly, like, that seems right to me. That seems more than fair. And yeah, Rebecca's entire deal this whole episode, she is making herself small to try and make Josh feel big so that he gets high on the feeling of being big and wants to be around her to hold on to that feeling. It's not about her at all. And she doesn't seem to see that. She doesn't get that, like, he's not into this because of you. This is because of what you make him feel about himself. And that's not a good place. You want to bring something to this. You want them to, like, respect you. And he clearly doesn't really, you know? So it's just awful. So what she does is, like, she gives him a drawer. And she has this whole conversation with Paul about this drawer being a huge win. And then again, she goes too fucking far. And she outfits this drawer with, like, internal lighting and a song that plays when he opens it and different cubby holes with chargers and everything. And, like, honestly, if she had just put some cords in and was like, oh, you can charge your stuff, that would have probably been pretty good. But she, like, has to just do this fucking whole thing. And it's the same as in the car. If she could have just been like, yeah, drop me off. I actually think maybe we need to take a little time. She would have been fine. If she had said, yeah, you know what? Take this drawer and pull something out of the drawer to make room for him. And she would have been fine. But she has to fucking have the Emery sweatshirt sitting there to remind him of his friend. She thinks that's going to be like, oh, there's other guys in the wings, like, ready to take your spot, and make him kind of jealous and sort of, like, possessive of her. No, all it does is remind him that this dude she was dating doesn't even know they're broken up. And this winds up backfiring on her. The drawer is, first of all, too much. And immediately Josh is like, what the fuck? She manages to distract him from that via handcuffs. But, you know, he will not remain distracted forever. There will be a point when he is alone in his car thinking about how he can't believe that she got a soundtrack for his fucking drawer. And then the whole thing with Greg coming to him in a dream as a falcon and yelling at him. This causes Josh to kind of spiral and be like, this is wrong. We can't do this. And I appreciated him just talking about, he says something about the Bible when he's, like, explaining to her why he's packing his stuff and leaving. And I keep forgetting that Josh, like, goes to speak to a priest when he's not feeling well. Like, he has faith. He has, like, a creed that he kind of tries to go by. And he needs to be reminded of it and brought back to it. But it's there. And I forget that sometimes. And I like being reminded that that is something that's important to him. Whether I agree with it or not, it's not relevant. So this her trying to tell Paula that it means something that he's taking this drawer, we go to this amazing Lemonade-esque bit of Love Kernels. Guys, this song is just so perfect. It is so relatable. Just trying to interpret everything that he says through the lens of, that has to do with me. That's about the two of us. This really means that he likes me. And god damn, looking back, realizing that none of that was about you. They did not care. Not the way you wanted them to anyway. And you were just so pathetic and just settling for scraps. And nothing really puts that into perspective, like getting into a healthy, good relationship in which the person is actually giving you the attention and love that you deserve. And you look back at what you were willing to settle for and you are just like, oh, sweetie, oh God. You like almost want to cry. Like it's so, you realize like how damaging you were being to yourself by recontextualizing every little word this person said. And you're also turning that person into somebody they're not. When you do that, you're not being fair to either party. You're giving yourself hope that isn't there. And you are making them out to be somebody who cares about you in a certain way that they are not expressing. So you are kind of falling for a person that isn't real. It's just bad all around. So let's see. Megan says they got a big name music video director for Love Kernels, I believe. It has a very different look than all of the other ones ever had. So that makes a lot of sense. And she says at the end that they blew their entire production budget and that Daryl is now played by a broom with a mustache. And they have this googly eye broom with a fucking necktie. Guys, I can't tell you. I was watching this with Owen and he fucking lost it at that part. He fell out. It was so funny. I always love to see the things that like really get Owen because we are not easy to make laugh. The two of us, like we laugh, but it'll be a short, like, you know, when it's something that really like gets to us, it's always sort of delightful. You know, he's mentioned that before too, that he always finds it really funny, the things that make me laugh. And for me, I am always going to laugh at things being like mispronounced just a little bit wrong. It's just so funny when people just say things just a tiny bit wrong. I don't know why. I just love it. So anyway, yeah, this video is flawless. It's so perfect. Erica says, I love the little asides in the video. Slurp, slurp. That's right. Like a little hamster. Oh, guys. Yeah. So that video is perfect and accurate and just all of it is just right. And then we go to Paula talking to her husband about what's going on. And we find out that things between her and her husband are continuing to improve. And this is something that's like been on my mind is that, you know, they had this one episode where it seemed like they reconnected and they were banging. And I was like, oh, good for you. But then I was like, you know, things don't just change. I hope that this is like something that continues to evolve. And it seems like the show is kind of just going with, oh yeah, they're fucking a lot more now and things have improved a lot. And I'm like, okay, I wouldn't have minded if they decided to like backpedal a little bit and be like, it's still taking some work. But I also do kind of like the fact that the show seemed to be like, we don't want Paula to just be invested in Rebecca because she's so unhappy in her personal life. That's a little bit boring. So why don't we make her happy in her personal life and have her come at this from a different angle? And instead of her being motivated and obsessed with Rebecca's personal life because her own romance is not great, we'll have her be invested in Rebecca's personal life because something else is missing from her life that has nothing to do with romance, that has to do with her being fulfilled as a person. And I like that. So I'm willing to overlook this like pretty easy fix that they had for her marriage. And yeah, her husband is like really supportive of the fact that like he remembers all the details of the story, by the way, which is really funny. So he is, you know, trying to be supportive of her talking about this, even though he knows that she is trying to like stop herself from getting too involved. And she says something like, I am not doing well at this. It's like I need a harness. Oh, by the way, they came in the mail today. I love it. I love the two of them starting to get into some kinky shit. Yay! It's great. And of course, they mention Amazon Prime here. And that is the thing that Rebecca brings up later when she's talking about having gotten the handcuffs. Product placement, don't care. It's perfect. So we have a scene with Josh talking to Hector, who lives with his mom. And Hector is just so creepy about it and calls her his best friend and is just like completely unapologetic about his situation. And the fact that he's moving back in with that he sees that as his only other option, it's not feeling like a great option to him because Hector is the only representation of moving back in with his parents that he sees in his life. Now, as somebody who moved back in with my mom for a couple months before I moved down to Texas, moving back in with your parents is something that has to happen sometimes. That's kind of what parents are supposed to be for, is they are supposed to be a safety net for you. Of course, ideally, you are able to move on and be an adult and not have to fall back on them. But guess what? We live in the year of our Lizzo 2020, in which you make $8 an hour and have a master's degree. So lots of things should be in a way that they are not. And I think that's sort of just how it has to be. So I really wish that he didn't react the way that he does to the idea of moving back in with his mother. But once we see Josh and his mom sit down and have boba and the way that she behaves with him, I mean, yeah, it's understandable. What's so funny is that Josh's mom reacts in a much more positive way to him moving back in than most parents would. So in that sense, he has a leg up on pretty much everybody, because a lot of parents, they hear their kid has to move back in with them and they're like, of course I want to be there for you. Of course I want to support you. Also though, I really thought we were done with this. Like a little bit of an aside. I don't want to do this, but also, yes, I will help you. And she is just, there's unmitigated happiness here. As far as she is concerned, he could live with her forever and she would clearly be fine with that. And I don't think Josh appreciates what he's got there in terms of a parent that, like, no, you don't want somebody who smothers you, but Josh is like a little kid. And I think that he is underestimating how much he would enjoy moving into a house where all his laundry is done and meals are cooked for him and all of this, at least for a little while. You know what? You've gone through some shit lately. Take a little break. Go to a place with somebody who's going to take care of you. That isn't Rebecca. Go ahead, buddy. As a treat. We can all have a little bit of smothering as a treat. But this leads to him kind of running off to Rebecca and deciding that he is going to try to make this work somehow. And it's a bad scene. Meanwhile, Rebecca is trying to find Greg because Josh has made it clear. She doesn't know that he's starting to backpedal on this, but Josh has made it clear that he is not interested in continuing things with her until they have made peace with Greg. And we find out, guys, excuse me, I need to take a drink of water. We find out that Greg just like disappeared after the wedding, texted Rebecca that he had to go to his mom's to help her with the kids, which I don't know what that, like the grandkids mean? I don't know. Because she had bad plastic surgery, and that other than that, she has not even heard from him for a month. Whoa. When I saw in my head the way this was all going to go, Greg just straight up dropping off the face of Earth never even occurred to me. Later on, we find out that what happened was he went home, he vomited and passed out. He woke up and got in his car, I am guessing, to try and go see Rebecca and fix his fuck up. Was still drunk, got pulled over, was arrested, and then was told to attend Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every day for 30 days. So when Rebecca finally tracks him down, she gets to see him talking about all of this because she uses Paula's magical abilities and they follow his IP on his phone to the AA meeting. Now, I had said a while back that it didn't feel to me like Greg was set up as an alcoholic the way that the show is painting him to be now. And they have a moment with Rebecca where she's like, but Greg's not an alcoholic. And then there's a montage of all of the moments in which he has taken refuge in alcohol, mentioned alcohol, been overindulging in alcohol, or just been flat out drunk, passing out, blah, 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 in order to show us like, no, yeah, he is though. Now, I'm willing to accept that for the sake of the show, but I have to admit, I think that my perspective is skewed because I am so used to drunkenness and drinking too much or being interested in having drinks being played as just a personality trait of characters that is not meant to be a red flag in any way on television, that with Greg, I just thought that's what they were doing. I just figured, well, you know, he just likes to drink. It's not like I could even really tell that much when he had gotten drunk. We see him talk about drinking a lot, and we see him like going to a bar to study. Honestly, I have several friends who would go to bars to study. They'd have a couple glasses of wine as they read their book, and it wouldn't seem like a big deal to me that somebody's going to a bar to study. You want to get out of the house? Cafes are closed at night. Makes sense to me. It's not out of the realm of so what I'm saying is I accept the show's premise that all of this adds up to evidence that he's an alcoholic. But until the episode at the wedding, it didn't feel like that to me. I didn't get the impression that he was drunk during a couple of scenes that I guess he was meant to be. And that's part of, like, being an alcoholic can mean that you're just very good at hiding when you're drunk also, that you manage to convince people it's not that bad because you're trying to convince yourself it's not that bad. But I just didn't really get the impression that was what was happening there. So, yeah, I'm willing to accept the evidence. I am just, I think, like, sort of numbed to what should be sort of warning signs because of the way this sort of thing is portrayed in television. People on TV just will have a drink at any given moment when they're just having a bad day. They'll just, like, you know, at the office, just pull a fucking bottle out of their desk drawer. And other people in the scene with them will just be like, oh yeah, give me a hit of that. When in reality, if we saw our coworker pull a bottle out of their desk drawer and just fucking have a finger of whiskey at their desk, most of us would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Are you kidding? It's not like, I just assumed that we were in that TV reality with Greg. And it turns out we're not. So, noted. And, you know, I had said one of the things that I really hoped for Greg was for him to get help. And that looks like what he's doing. It was help that was required of him. It was not something that he went and sought out because he really understood he had a problem. But once he was there for the 30 days, he began to realize. And that's what can happen. I remember the moment, for example, that I realized I had a problem with binge eating. I was actually at an AA meeting with a friend, and somebody was talking about hiding the bottles. They would drink a lot of wine. They would hide the empty bottles in their pantry, and they would slowly parcel those bottles out into the recycling over time so that it didn't look to their neighbors like they just had tons of empty bottles coming out of their house for just them. And I had just the previous day eaten like 8 mini Snickers bars at work they had like a candy jar. And I took the wrappers and I hid them under the trash. I like reached in, pulled trash out of the way, put the wrappers in, and then covered it up. And it was just one of those moments of just being like, oh my God, it's not bottles. And it's not like affecting me like a drug, but I am definitely like not treating myself well and trying to cover it up. And yikes, Natasha. And that can be exactly the thing. You just like put in a different context, and all of a sudden the behavior that you thought was kind of like quirky or charming is suddenly really damaging, and you just didn't want to see it or couldn't have seen it without help, you know? So this moment, like, Rebecca kind of doesn't seem to really, she's so caught up in what's going on with Josh that this reveal with Greg seems to make very little impression on her. All she wants to do is continue on with her plan to tell Greg about Josh. And, you know, Paula looks at her like, are you fucking kidding me? Paula is the one who goes home and talks about this reveal to her husband while she's having a drink. And she tells him that she realizes this, the feeling that Greg said he had the first time he had a drink is the same feeling that Rebecca said she had when she saw Josh again. And that is what Paula says she feels when she is like participating in the toxic shit in Rebecca's personal life. So for Paula, that description is very telling. And I think it's interesting that that's what Rebecca felt when she saw Josh, that Josh is a symptom of an addiction to her. It's not like she is interpreting that feeling as love. She's interpreting that feeling as a sign that they're meant for each other, when in fact it's more likely a sign of obsessive, unhealthy behavior surfacing again. Her obsessive nature and her compulsion has an object now. And it's a perfect excuse to distract herself from her own life by obsessing over another person outside of her. Makes sense. So Paula decides what she's going to do is she is going to write up a contract and asks Rebecca to sign it. A contract agreeing that she will be there to listen and to give advice, but she will no longer be participating in anything unethical or illegal again. And Rebecca, it's honestly, guys, a scene where somebody's signing a stupid friendship contract should not be this moving, but it really is. Her asking Rebecca to sign this, her look of relief when Rebecca agrees to do it with not much hesitation at all. Honestly, Rebecca's just immediately like, I mean, if this is what you need, of course. And her being like, oh my God, yeah, you just agreed. Oh, thank God. Followed by the look that Rebecca gives her after she's left. It's really moving. I was just like, oh my God, you guys. And Rebecca's leafing through the contract that Paula has created and is like sincerely impressed and says something about how like, this is excellent work, Paula. And I really love that detail as well. You know, Rebecca, even she compliments, granted it's during an illegal thing, but she compliments Paula earlier in the episode as well, when Paula has tracked down Greg's phone. And Rebecca like looks at her and is like, man, you're really good at this. It's kind of sexy. Like, honestly, there is nothing sexier to me than people who are doing something they're good at. It is just the best. I have like a competence boner every time. So I like that Rebecca gives her a compliment about something she's really good at that is not illegal, because she needs that, you know, she needs to be reminded this isn't her only skill set. She's not only good for doing shit that's like questionable. She's also got skills that can be leveraged to make a real career out of. So anyway, that's what's going on there. Rebecca, in her search to find Greg, by the way, she goes over to Greg's dad's. I am extremely curious what the fuck is going on here, because his father is rude to her and is like, oh yeah, you just come in and mess up people's lives and then pass it off as quirky, which like, low-key true, but also very kind of reductive in a way that feels to me like disingenuous. Like, I feel like in that scene, he was purposely being a little rude to get her to go away because he doesn't want her to blow Greg's cover and like see that Greg is hiding right back there. I don't, the question remains for me, what Greg has told his father, because I don't know how much Greg knows. It's been pretty hush hush, like between Rebecca and Josh, both of them are not really telling people that they're sleeping together, but Hector knows. I don't really have faith that Hector's not out here telling everybody, because I don't feel like he understands that that's something that's a bad idea. And Hector's a mutual friend. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Josh and Greg not being in any contact if they're close friends. I assume that probably Greg, if they are close friends, Greg probably is also not in contact with Hector. But it's just, there is an animosity towards her from his father when she shows up, that if we are operating under the assumption his father only knows everything that happened up until and right after the wedding regarding Greg, and he doesn't know what happened with Rebecca and Josh, his attitude towards her doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. It makes sense in context of him knowing and feeling like, really seriously, what the fuck? But then I want to know how he would have found out. And granted, it's not really as if it would have been that difficult if anybody was swinging by Rebecca's place, if Josh's car is in the parking lot overnight, or if Greg made it almost to her house when he was swerving and saw Josh's car in the parking lot the next morning after the wedding, he could assume. But even if Josh is staying with her, that's not in itself proof, because Josh got kicked out of his house, or he gave up his apartment. So she could probably pass it off as just, I'm just giving him a place to stay. He's crashing on the couch. We're not even involved together if she wanted. And there's not really anybody to say differently except for Hector and Paula. So anyway, yeah, I'm just really a bit confused by this, by what Greg knows, by what he's told his dad, by what his dad was trying to accomplish, but in the way that he behaved towards her here. It's just such a weird moment. So yeah, we have the whole thing with Josh sleeping at work and his boss being like, I'm 2 years younger than you and I already have 2 kids and a house. What are you doing, buddy? You definitely cannot sleep under your desk for a few days. No. And meanwhile, in the background throughout all of this, we have this really adorable, ratcheting up of the relationship between White Josh and Daryl. And it is the cutest thing ever. So Josh is bringing a healthy lunch to Daryl so that he can, because he's kind of being a little bit of a trainer for him as well. And he gives him a key to the apartment, and it's a really sweet, casual moment where, for Daryl, it's a big deal. Hey, I'm giving you the key to my place. And for White Josh, he's like, oh, awesome. This will make things easier. And he's not reading into it a ton. He's just yeah, this feels right. And the both of them are on the same page, even though they clearly have different sort of attitudes about what's happening. It's not that they have totally different values. It's just they work well together in the way that they see things. And I just love the little heart-shaped keychain on that key that has what I think is a picture of the two of them in the keychain, if I'm not mistaken, which again, so cute. Guys, when I moved in here, Owen had given me a key to his place when I came down to visit one time and did not take it back when I went home and worked for several months. And while I was gone, I got duplicates of the key made that there were black keys with a red heart in the middle, and in white letters it said home. And then I got keychains made that had the date of me moving in with him engraved on them, and a picture of a house. It was a metal house shaped keychain, had the date I was moving in, and it said home is wherever you are on the back of it. And I got those for each of us for the day that I moved in. I am a Daryl, is what I'm saying. 100%. 1,000%. Honestly, Owen's a bit of a Daryl too. So White Josh takes his key and is like, oh, cute, thanks. And doesn't even really seem to notice the detail of it. Owen, when he saw the keychain, he got really choked up and it like meant a ton to him. Part of me wonders, does Daryl get bothered by the fact that White Josh doesn't seem to notice this stuff? I don't know, because then we see a little like scene of the two of them later looking through a catalog, and it feels like they're like picking out furniture or something. I'm not even totally sure what it is they're looking at. But there is an intimacy and a casualness and a realness to the way that they are like interacting with one another. I think it's an IKEA catalog. I'm looking at it. I'm like, pretty sure that's IKEA. And it is just such a great example of what moving forward looks like when it's healthy, you know? So I think because Daryl had already said White Josh had a dresser, and I had assumed that he was like talking about that he had given him one. But I think that maybe they're looking at this catalog to pick him out a dresser. Then he's going to like buy one that is, you know, specifically for him. It's just really cute. So I'm over time, but Josh winds up coming back to the house because he doesn't want to stay with his mom. And he kind of, like him and Rebecca talk about how they are just going to not be romantic, that they are on the same page. Everything is good. And then they immediately have sex after. And they say within the song that they're singing that the sex is hotter because they know they're not supposed to be having sex, which is unfortunately an absolutely true thing. And I don't know what the two of these fucking fools are doing, but it's not heading anywhere good. Josh, you are a disaster. Rebecca, you are even worse. What are you doing, you two? Can I tell you guys something? I'm over time. I should not even be doing this, but we see Heather this episode painting her toenails on a pile of potatoes behind the bar because she's getting all of Greg's shifts since he hasn't been showing up for work, and she's getting to buy that kayak that she's had her eye on. I ship Heather and Josh. I think they would be great together. Heather is kind of unprofessional. She's very unprofessional. She has sort of like an immature view of the world, but there's also a weird like wisdom to it. And she is extremely laid back and also likes doing active stuff in a way that I feel would mesh really well with Josh. I don't see Rebecca and Josh's like hobbies and what they want to do during their downtime matching up at all. He's going to the dojo. He's the kind of guy who probably likes going hiking and shit. Like, Rebecca doesn't want to do that stuff. Come on. I mean, it's, you know, and yeah, she's out here talking about a kayak and how she's outdoorsy. And I mean, tell me that Josh's girlfriend doesn't turn up and tell him, oh, by the way, I bought a kayak. And Josh doesn't like explode with excitement. He would be so thrilled by that. He would be like a little kid. Oh my God, you got a kayak? When are we going out? Can we take it out today? We're still a little bit of light left outside. Let's go today. Let's just try it out. Let's just put it in the pond. Like 100%. And I think Heather would be very excited about his excitement. Like, I think she's the kind of person that can be sort of dour in the absence of other people's enthusiasm. But I think that Josh is such a light in that way that it's sort of hard to fight against it. And I think it would help her be a little bit more positive, and she would help keep him a little grounded. So, in this essay, no, I'm going to wrap it up, but I'm just going to say that I ship Josh and Heather, and I've never really even seen them interact, but I don't care. That's what I'm saying. So I'm on the record. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
was an Unspoiled Network podcast.